focused on this 8.9 magnitude earthquake that hit in Tokyo. It struck a little before 3 p.m. local time. That was just before 1 a.m. Eastern time here in New York. The epicenter was in the sea, located about 230 miles from Tokyo. And this quake rattled homes and businesses, caused many to collapse. Cars toppled off of bridges, and right now millions of people are without power. They say power was cut to some 4 million homes in and around Tokyo. The bullet trains north of the country stopped. They also had major problems with landslides, people being buried in the aftermath of that. Right now, the confirmed number of people killed, 32, but many experts expect that to go much higher. Again, these are pictures that you're looking at from Tokyo. But this quake then triggered a massive tsunami. 13-foot wall of water having a devastating impact along the northeast coastline. We're going to show you those pictures now where the waves just literally devouring this farmland several miles inland, washing away homes, cars, trucks. You saw huge ships, anything in its path. And again, we'll be showing you more of those dramatic pictures in just a moment. Also, just a new update for you. The U.S. Geological Survey is confirming now that a smaller earthquake, a magnitude 4.6, hit Hawaii. They're saying that this happened at 10:58 p.m. Hawaii time, and they are also issuing tsunami warnings for this earthquake. For Hawaii and the U.S. coastline. This stretches all the way from the California-Mexico border all the way up to Alaska. Meantime, back in Japan, near Tokyo, incredible pictures of an oil refinery burning out of control. Japan also had 4 nuclear plants that were closest to the epicenter of this quake. They claim now that those were shut down safely. And the Prime Minister saying that as of right now, there are no reports of any radioactive material leaking from that power plant.
And again, this was about 230 miles away, all away from Tokyo, city of 13 million people. Our reporter, Kyung-ha, is there. Kyung, you were talking a little earlier that, in fact, there was about several minutes it felt like this earthquake was shaking. We talked to another gentleman a short time ago who said, Japan is pretty structurally sound. They know how to do this, if you will, and Tokyo is pretty much intact. We have a two-pronged disaster, if you will. We've got the tsunami and we've got the earthquake. Let's start with the earthquake. What kind of shape, in fact, is Tokyo in right now?
Well, I can tell you that right now there is an infrastructure problem in Tokyo. But before I get to that, let me tell you what was a shared experience in the city of 13 million people. And I just want to give you a small snapshot. And remember, we are hundreds of miles away from the epicenter of the quake. But just take a look at what happened inside our bureau. We haven't picked up anything. The papers all started flying. The walls were shaking. The lights were flickering. Back over here where we have our tapes, they have all fallen off the shelves. And this is, again, a very large distance from where the epicenter of the quake was. And this is just one small snapshot of what people across the city felt. There were reports of damage of some ceilings falling. There are many people who felt the shaking for several minutes. I was in one of Tokyo's busiest train stations, Tokyo Station, and in that station, we felt the shaking for several minutes. The train lines were shut down. The signs were swinging back and forth. The lights were flickering. You could hear children crying. And though there wasn't panic, because people are quite used to earthquakes, even an earthquake of this size, and this did rise to a higher level of concern, this was certainly something sizable. This was different. And especially when the train lines stopped and the underground was told, everybody get out. That's when people knew that we are on the verge of a national disaster. Because this is a country where if your train is just 15 seconds late, there's something wrong. That usually tells people that there's something wrong. So to have an entire train line in one of the most connected cities in the world completely shut down, that is highly unusual, and that raises concern for people. So in the streets of Tokyo, people are on foot. They're trying to get home. But many people, just like New York City, have to commute a great distance. And it is very difficult to get home tonight because all the taxis are taken. There are no train lines. And as far as what we can tell, it is just very, very difficult to get around. So a lot of people walking around trying to figure out what they're going to do. That's the crisis in Tokyo. And so the Prime Minister has urged people to remain calm and just move about your business as best as you can, given the situation. The crisis up north is a different magnitude because of what we've seen, the tsunami, the massive debris that's moving across that region. That is a search and rescue operation. It is still winter here, winter conditions, and they are trying to do the search and rescue now in the dark. So it is going to be a totally different disaster up north, and we may not understand the scope of it for 8 hours until there's light.
All right, Kyung we appreciate the update from you. We will continue to check in with you plenty throughout this morning. We appreciate you showing us around that newsroom as well. A lot of places look like that, but again, it's the pictures that are outside right now with these tsunami ones that are really just striking this morning.
It makes you wonder how you even begin to find those people and clean up after that type of devastation. Thank you, Kyung. Meantime, tsunami warnings issued for the entire U.S. West Coast now. John Rundle is a seismologist and professor at UC Davis. He's also the founder of the earthquake research group OpenHazards.com, and he joins us live from Santa Fe again this morning. And again, we did confirm, in fact, by the USGS that a 4.6 quake did hit in Hawaii as well.
Yeah. There's expected to be earthquakes in many locations around the world, and of course, some of them are likely associated with major earthquakes, and some of them would have occurred anyway. So earthquakes can strike essentially without warning, and this one basically did. I'm not aware of any foreshocks that occurred prior to it that were recognized. Japan in particular is a place where the earthquake's seismicity is roughly occurs at 10 times the rate that you see in California and the U.S. In the Northridge earthquake, one of the interesting things back in 94 in that earthquake, it was a magnitude 6.7, the largest and most destructive one to strike, the most destructive one anyway, to strike Southern California in a couple of decades. Many of these steel reinforced buildings in downtown Los Angeles suffered damage to their steel structures, steel I-beams and whatnot, the joints cracked and so forth. And that wasn't apparent until the trig engineers began taking apart the buildings, basically looking to see what had happened. So even for buildings like in places like Tokyo and Sendai that may have appeared to stand up following this earthquake, once they start looking at those in some detail, they may find serious structural damage, which might indicate that whole buildings would have to be torn down and essentially rebuilt, adding to the damage and the cost.
And Mr. Rundle, you used this word just a moment ago, and again to our viewers as we continue to watch these pictures. Again, this is several miles inland, where this wave of water is washing just everything with it in its path. But again, Mr. Rundle on the line with us, a seismologist. So you used this word foreshocks. There were foreshocks apparently leading up to this earthquake off the coast of Japan. Several days they saw several of these foreshocks, if you will. That might not be a term a lot of people are familiar with, but those foreshocks, did those kind of give us an indication that something big was coming?
Well, the problem is foreshocks don't stand up and wave a little flag and say, I'm a foreshock. Essentially, they're earthquakes, just like any other earthquakes. Now, in retrospect, you can go back and look and say, well, these earthquakes occurred in the epicentral region of the large earthquake, and therefore we think they were probably associated with that large earthquake. They were probably an impending precursor, but at the time those foreshocks occurred, that wasn't necessarily apparent. So that's difficult. Foreshocks look like any other earthquake, and so it's just not clear, when an earthquake, as it's occurring, when a smaller earthquake is just a smaller earthquake, and when it signals that something larger is about to happen.
I want to ask you another question. We're getting this information from the government about these tsunami arrival times, I guess you could say. But it's important to note that just because they're saying these arrival times happen, it doesn't mean that an actual wave is imminent, right? I mean, so we have this breakdown of where they may be coming, including areas around Auckland, New Zealand, all the way into other parts, all the way down to South America. What exactly does it mean for these locales that are getting these warnings about when a tsunami may come?
Well, just like weather forecasting and weather prediction.